It's time for John Coggeshall and pardon me for all seeking pardons, parole, clemency, inmates deserving who could be serving too much time for what they did. It's time for John Coggeshall and pardon me for all seeking mercy, a chance to be free. We'll be learning.
Hi everybody, it's John Coggeshall. Everybody calls me Cog. And this is my Cogcast. And today we're going to learn about a deserving pardon petitioner named Skyy Reese. And I'd like to read you his letter to the governor. Dear Honorable Governor and the Virginia Parole Board, my rehabilitation started in earnest when I began to really look at what I was incarcerated for and realizing that I had victimized a lot of people. I used to think simple-minded and negative. I was very, very childish. Quickly, I had to stop my childish thoughts of wanting acceptance by others. Prison forced me to become a man at a very young age. I entered the Commonwealth Supermax prison, Red Onion, at a very young age, 16th birthday. Sentenced to serve 50 active years incarceration, virtually a death sentence, for being the designated getaway driver in 4 robberies that occurred in a 4-week span in January 2001. No one was killed, but out of my sight line, some were injured. I can never repay those that were victimized, but I do realize I can pay it forward. I strive diligently to earn my GED, obtain multiple certifications in the computer field, and complete multiple self-help programs. All I tried to do, and keeping in mind the recent COVID-19 prison restrictions and postponements that curtail education inside prison walls, I am still striving to earn my bachelor's degree in sociology. 2 courses towards this degree, one via mail and one at the facility. All of the classes for this degree relate to what I'm already doing and to what I would like to be doing in the future. Also, I have been the co-facilitator for a class called Thinking for a Change, and recently I was enrolled into the Victim Impact class. I was so happy when I received that invite because it's just that, by invitation only. A feather in my cap. I had been trying for 5 years to get into that program. In my spare time, I also wrote a book called #Juvenile Injustice. And in it, I share my experiences going from the juvenile center to adult jail and then to prison. My book is for teenagers and was written to give young adults a real look at what it means to be in the prison system as a juvenile. Today, I'm 35 years of age. I was recently a mentor in the Augusta Correctional Center's reentry unit. Mine has been a long and difficult journey towards manhood because most of it was done in prison. I was an impressionable kid infatuated with running the streets with adults. Like many inner city youths, I had no positive male role models. My dad left the military, and when I was about 2, he began to abuse crack cocaine and alcohol. He also abused my mom. I remember stopping over at my grandmother's house thinking we were just visiting, but instead I was left there. I'd wait outside looking up and down the street for my dad to come and pick me up like he promised, but he never came. My mom eventually came and got me. When I was 10, I got run over by a school bus. While I lay in the hospital, my dad never came to visit, and during the bed rest and recovery process, he never bothered to check on me. I cried a lot as a child, but eventually I stopped and instead went across the highway to play with the hardheads in the projects. Eventually, Mom and I gave up on my dad, and she began a new relationship. This man was even more abusive to my mom and me than my dad was. He was a drug dealer, an alcoholic, and a drug user. One day, instead of lifting my mom's head up off the floor after she got beat, I decided I'd run out of the house when I knew he was going to beat her some more, thinking he would chase after me and it would spare her. I left the front door wide open and ran until I couldn't run anymore. So then I just walked around the neighborhood. I decided to go to a friend's house. She was about 12, my friend. Her parents were in the drug game, but I knew I'd feel safer there than at my own home. Soon after this, my best friend, my cousin, died in a car accident. I was crushed. He was 12, I was 11. His death impacted how I thought about life. I began to think life was pointless if it could so easily be snuffed out. When I was in the 6th grade, one morning, I saw my mom in the bathroom with her head in her hands, crying. I had to stay after school that day, but a teacher came to fetch me to leave early. Once outside, I noticed a police car in front of my mom's van. Her face was black, blue, and purple looking. My heart dropped and butterflies in my gut took off. It hurt seeing her that way. I asked her if she was okay. I felt so helpless. I didn't know what to say or do. After that, I went to live with my dad's girlfriend, who also had kids by my dad. My dad's girlfriend, who was somewhat permissive, allowed her oldest son and his friends to smoke weed and drink alcohol in the house. I was now living in a rougher environment with nothing but older guys to hang with. There were 7 of us living in that 2-bedroom townhouse. I started drinking, smoking, and hanging in the streets. At this point, my mom decided to relocate to North Carolina. I went to visit her, but I didn't like it there. I stayed in Virginia, but eventually I missed my mom, my sister, and my brother more and more. I asked my mom to come get me, and she did. But as the new kid in a new state, I felt even more alone. We struggled, but my mom made sure we never went without. By this time, I was a young teenager. My mom did everything she could to curb my wayward behavior, but I was being brainwashed by the older people on the street. While in North Carolina, 2 New York guys allowed me to hang with them. I started taking money from friends and going to buy weed from them. Then these 2 New York dudes sat me down and told me how I could make lots of money by selling their stuff for them. I admired them. I figured I could make things easier for my mom and impress them as well. I would hang with the New York guys who were both 21 years old or older. I was 14, but I thought I was grown. Those guys were father figures to me. They pressed me to go to school and continue playing sports, like good fathers would. But they also had me smoking and drinking with them, like bad fathers might. My mom finally figured out what was going on, and we ended up moving back to Virginia real quick. But I had a cousin in the Commonwealth who was 18 years old and who introduced me to his questionable friends. Questionable friends, the story of my young life. Once again, I was hanging out with an older crowd who were selling drugs and robbing people. They made me feel accepted. To be honest, I would have done anything to gain the acceptance of those who were more than willing to cash in on my rampant gullibility. I knew if I wasn't down with them, they wouldn't show me the attention I craved. They had me feeling like I was part of their circle. I didn't participate in crimes for the money. I committed crimes so that I'd be accepted by these adults. They made me think we'd never get caught. But they also never discussed anything about consequences. So I never thought about the consequences of my actions. Within a few months, my life spiraled out of control. As a child, I didn't realize I was being used. They wanted me to ride with them so I could take the fall for any gun charges, usually less punishment if dealt with in juvenile court, not because they really looked at me like a brother. I was in places no child should be, and I saw things no child should see. A psychiatrist from my pre-sentence report diagnosed me as having deep depression and very low self-esteem. I just wanted to be accepted. And because of that, I made some incredibly poor decisions, and I regret them every day. During my first few years incarcerated, it was nothing but hard down hell. In the jail, they held me in medical isolation for about 7 months. I was locked behind a steel door with a flap covering the small window. The room was freezing. I hardly ever left my cell. No TV, no books, no school, no religious program. After isolation, I got jumped and beat up multiple times. And then I was sent to Red Onion. The atmosphere there was more violent on a much higher level because Red Onion houses the most dangerous and predatory inmates in the Commonwealth of Virginia. I had no choice but to learn how to survive anew in this chaotic environment. I was put in a position where I had to be violent myself so that I wouldn't be thought of as an easy victim. This was my motivation for joining a gang. I was welcomed in the Prison Bloods gang and ascended through the ranks, eventually to a leadership role. It took me years before I was able to reach that high-ranking position, but I did. Most guys who hold any kind of authority like that use it only in negative ways. I told myself, I'm not going to go down that road. I'm blessed with a mother who could survive anything and still remain compassionate and human. And if she could do it, so could I. I refused to throw my life away. I would not die in prison. But there were times back then when I used to think my life was over, and there was no point in even educating myself. At first, I didn't care about school, and I didn't see any reason to complete programs with a 50-year sentence. But my mom played a big part in keeping me focused. During a visit, she told me, Skyy, you will thrive in anything you do. You've always had the gift of being personable and likable, so use it. Now, I do what I can to make her proud that I am her son. She's helped me grow to be a better man. About 7 years ago, I told myself that I could influence lots of inmates in a positive way. I told myself I had to stop thinking about committing suicide. I had to stop thinking about doing something to make somebody kill me. And I had to focus on bettering myself as well as helping my homies better themselves. And the educational opportunities in prison gave me an avenue to do just that. Not only gave me something positive to do, it also gave me an excuse so I didn't have to constantly be around negativity. And I have been negativity-free in prison for a very long time. I resigned from my leadership role in the Bloods. It was a hard decision because I had spent years working to change the violent direction of that gang to an organization of men working to improve themselves. My vision was to promote family, to promote education, to promote legal financial stability. I encouraged business plans, mission statements, and making positive goals. I wanted to continue teaching these guys the simple truth that doing bad things eventually gets bad results. History shows us what happens to anyone who tries to be a kingpin or violent gang leader. Bad things happen. There's nothing gangsta, macho, or intelligent about coming in and out of prison or doing life in prison. I worked hard to finally get inmates to see that we can't continue down a path of destruction. I tried to turn the violence down a notch, and began rewarding those who achieved positive accomplishments instead of rewarding those who punch somebody in the face. Punching somebody in the face essentially gets you nothing. Obtaining your GED and completing programs offering genuine rewards, that gets you something. Every member should have a prison job, attend school, learn things, encourage others to attend programs and college classes like I did. I believe I influenced guys in every walk of life, and other prisoners started to encourage education over violence. I often told people we can't keep proving the naysayers right. We must demonstrate that we are much more than a bunch of stupid bangers, that despite our circumstances, we consistently and constantly strive to do better. While incarcerated these last 19 years, my life has not been in vain. It's not been wasted. I have been proactive in rehabilitating myself and helping many others towards their own rehabilitation. For example, a fellow inmate and I started a nonprofit organization called Healing Hearts, Inc. It is geared towards helping at-risk youth, battered women like my mother, and gang members. I really want to help at-risk youth so they don't end up in prison like I did. I want to help women who are trying to escape abusive relationships or have escaped but need support so they can start a new chapter in their lives. I want to help gang members renounce their lifestyle and live a peaceful and positive life. Education has been a mainstay in my life while in prison, and it has been instrumental in my transformation. It took time. It took time. But education gave me the tools I needed. My mother is now a proud mother. She's very proud of me. And boy, that feels good. And I know any community would be proud as well. As a mentor and assistant in our prison reentry unit, I am tasked with facilitating the actual change in others who are soon to be returning to society. I experience a wonderful feeling of accomplishment every time I help these returning citizens. People are changing, I'm changing, and we're doing it together. As a kid in prison, I wanted to end my life, but the trust and confidence that a few good people instilled in me radically shifted my perception of life. I hope to be perceived as one of those good people, using any standing I may have within our prison community to encourage and inspire others who are as lost as I once was. Most people don't know this, but I've never worn a real suit and don't know how to tie a necktie. I've never been on a date or been in a real relationship with a grown woman. I didn't get to experience prom, homecoming, and I've never gone to a family reunion. I never got the chance to see my granddad before he passed. I never got the opportunity to be a big brother to my younger siblings. I was too young to protect my mom from physical abuse by older men or be by her side when she fought and beat cancer and then went on to survive a heart attack. My mom is a rock. I survived as she did. I put myself in prison because my thoughts, my words, and my actions were of a child who craved attention and acceptance. Now, I am a man whose thoughts, words, and actions center on helping others. I asked Governor for a second chance at life so I can spend time with my mom and remaining family and to share my testimony, giving others a positive role model to follow. I am compelling evidence that all hope is not lost. I would make the Virginia governor and the Virginia Parole Board proud of any decision to give me a second chance. The skills that I have learned while in prison and the experiences I've gained as a result of what I've been through make me uniquely equipped to help troubled youth in our Commonwealth of Virginia and in our prison system. I would love the opportunity to be such an asset. Respectfully, Skyy Reese. Skyy Reese, a juvenile unjustly sentenced. Skyy Lorenzo Reese filed for executive clemency in May 2018. At the age of 16, he received a sentence of 50 active years in prison for 4 robberies, 4 use of a firearm counts, 1 count of abduction, 4 counts of conspiracy, and 1 count of malicious wounding in 2001. He was not identified by any of the witnesses during any of the 4 robberies, but under improper interrogation, he admitted to being, and actually was, only the getaway driver for each robbery. He has served 19 years and is now 35 years old. Back in 2001, without his mother's consent, detectives removed Mr. Reese from a detention home. In fact, his mother had called and said she did not want him removed and questioned without an attorney present. It didn't make any difference. They took him out anyway, and they interrogated him without benefit of counsel. 8 circumstances we'd like you to consider about Skyy Reese. He was a juvenile. Authorities knowingly removed him from a detention center without parental consent. His mother was not present at the interrogation. The interrogating officer was told directly by his parents that she did not want him to be interviewed without a lawyer present. He was not told that his mother was in the lobby of the police station attempting to see him while he was being interviewed. He was told by the investigator that others had confessed to the crimes and had implicated him, which wasn't true. In giving him his Miranda rights, the investigator failed to sufficiently ensure that he understood them and understood the full implications of waiving them and agreeing to talk to police. And his confession was the result of coercion, inexperience, immaturity, and vulnerability to suggestion. Reese was the youngest individual involved and the least culpable, as he was merely the getaway driver. A co-defendant and the adult mastermind received a plea bargain of 20 years. Another adult, who was physically involved, was never charged at all, while young Mr. Reese received 50 years for being just the getaway driver. After many years of incarceration, Skyy Reese, while doing research, discovered that the Commonwealth had also offered him a 20-year plea agreement. He doesn't recall ever receiving that information. As a youth entering the prison system, to protect himself from predatory adults, he entered into a safer association with gang-affiliated inmates. He rose in ranks within that gang as a leader. He was repulsed by violence and rewarded those who took classes or participated in positive activities. He eventually renounced any and all gang affiliations, but remains respected for his affirmative mentoring skills. Recognizing that education was key in his personal development, he's acquired a long list of credits while incarcerated, including but not limited to earning his GED, classes and workshops in breaking barriers, thinking for a change, problem-solving skills, substance alcohol abuse classes, sign language, moving forward, and multiple computer classes, and much, much more. He has taken classes at the collegiate level from Dabney S. Lancaster and Southside Community Colleges, Adams State, James Madison, Ohio, and Washington and Lee universities. He is working towards his bachelor's in sociology, and he has written and published the book, #Juvenile Injustice. Skyy has participated in a victim impact program, mentored several charity drives, and has developed and incorporated a program called Healing Hearts that helps young people steer clear of gangs. I'd like to take a moment to read you just a little bit of Skyy Reese's book, #Juvenile Injustice. It is available. You can get it on the internet. And I'm just going to tell you what it's about. This book takes you on a firsthand, horrifying journey through school to prison. Hundreds of violent adult prisoners and one kid who was forced to learn skills of survival describes how brutal life can be on earth as a 16-year-old serving a 50-year sentence in Virginia's toughest prison. The bloodshed, pain, agony, mental and emotional torture is unimaginable. Follow Skyy as he finds his way, joins an extended family behind bars, and you'll read a story of true ambition, pain, and ultimately redemption. As a boy struggles to be a man in the harshest of environments. After reading this gripping memoir, your opinions and points of view on sending our children to prison are sure to change. This book is a great read for children who need a wake-up call. Hashtag Juvenile Injustice by Skyy Reese. Thanks for joining me today. Once again, I'm John Coggeshall. Everybody calls me Cog. It's my Cogcast, and we'll see you next time when we'll talk about a deserving pardon petitioner. See you then.